think you should think twice before taunting a doll. Have you ever heard of Annabelle Doll? It's probably the most famous haunted doll of all time.
No, I have not.
Seriously?
Tell me
Wait,
more.
is this the Raggedy Ann doll?
Yes.
Yes.
I do know about this doll.
Yes. All right, so
He had a hard knock life.
For her.
that was Little Orphan Annie.
Oh.
God damn
Even
it, Cass.
creepier. Even creepier when you think about it. Even creepier.
And Jay-Z.
Oh, yeah. I was
Way creepier.
Way creepier.
Oh, it's nothing like Jay-Z, though.
Way creepier.
All right, tell me about Annabelle.
The story about the Annabelle doll revolves around two college-stage nursing students, Donna and Angie. They were roommates, and they were both preparing to graduate from nursing school. For her 28th birthday, Donna's mother had purchased an old Raggedy Ann doll for her daughter in a secondhand shop, and Donna thought that the gift was charming and delightful, and she took it home and immediately placed it in her bedroom to decorate her bed. So everything seemed normal for the first few days, but then both girls started to notice that something was odd about the doll. It appeared that somehow the doll was moving on its own, changing positions, albeit only slightly at first, but the
God,
crossing of the arms and uncrossing of the legs, or falling over when it should have been propped up securely against some pillows, just totally innocuous. But then things started to escalate, and they noticed that the doll began to appear in entirely different rooms than the one it had been placed in. The girls would find it waiting for them in the living room couch with its arms crossed, looking at them as they would walk through the front door, when it had only been in Donna's room this morning. They became quite alarmed, though, when they returned home one night and they found that the doll was standing up, leaning against a chair. And they tried to
Just like chilling?
Yeah.
Just like chilling?
Yeah. Like it had been caught in the act as they opened the door.
Oh, my God.
Like it was like, oh.
Just a doll. Just only doll.
You open up the front door and you just hear...
The spookier thing is that the girls tried to recreate the position on their own afterwards, and they couldn't do it. The doll wouldn't stand up of its own accord.
Oh, my God.
But, so then they started
Doll's
to
a
panic
jerk.
when...
What a jerk.
Seriously.
So they started to panic, of course, and they told one of their longtime old friends, Lou, who was always over at the apartment. And when he first saw the doll, he told them that there was something odd about it, that it was somehow inherently evil and that they should have just get rid of it. But they didn't. And around this time, let's say about a month after the occurrences first started, Donna and Angie had two separate discoveries of messages that appeared from nowhere. They were written in the hand of a child in a pencil on small strips of parchment.
Oh.
And they said...
Only dolls get parchment nowadays. Where do you find parchment?
Yeah. They said, help us. And help Lou.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Plural?
Help us?
Help us.
Interesting.
And the girls had no idea who us were. Is that grammatically correct?
That is.
Okay.
Who us were?
Who
I'll
us
take
were.
it.
Who us were?
Who us was?
Who you be?
Who
I think
they?
that's a show on
Who
NBC.
am we? Who am we?
But what's even spookier about that is that Donna tore apart the apartment because she was convinced that they didn't have either one of those things. She could not find any parchment, and they didn't have a pencil in the apartment either. So Lou tried to convince them that the messages were from the doll, but that it somehow wanted to communicate with them. And as the occurrences kept intensifying, like during Christmas time, a little chocolate boot appeared on their stereo, and neither one of them had purchased it or received it as a gift. Or they saw a statue levitate across the room from them, and it fell after a second or two. They discovered that the doll had what looked like droplets of blood on the back of its hands and on its chest, on the dress when they came home one night.
Almost like stigmata?
Almost like it was oozing out of the doll.
Oh, my God.
And so
Precisely.
the two women, they went to a medium to try and figure out what was going on, and they brought them into the apartment to do a seance. And the woman told them that the doll was inhabited by a spirit that was named Annabelle Higgins, a 7-year-old girl who used to play in the fields where the apartment complex was later built, and her body was actually discovered in that field.
Annabelle Higgins.
Annabelle Higgins.
That name does not ring a bell.
Or Annabelle?
But
Please continue.
Okay, well, the medium couldn't tell them anything else about her death, except that the Annabelle said that they were happy times for her before this. So the spirit conveyed to them, and Donna, quote, said, "Because everyone around here was all grown up and only concerned with their jobs, there was no one else she could relate to except us. Annabelle felt that we would be able to understand her, and that's why she began moving the rag doll in the first place. All Annabelle wanted was to be loved, and so she asked if she could stay with us and move into the doll. So we said yes.
Sure.
Damn, dude.
Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you? What could go wrong?
A big mistake. And so despite the tender, moving story, Lou wasn't convinced, and he told them that it was something demonic about the doll and that they needed to get rid of it. But these two girls felt so torn about this child that they did nothing.
How old were they?
28.
Okay.
So the friends had been planning a road trip, and they were going to meet to set out the route on some maps. And the night before, Lou was alone in his apartment asleep, and he had been experiencing a nightmare that he had been having frequently as of late. And he woke up in a state of sleep paralysis, where he couldn't move or speak, and he felt something was very wrong.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
He looked down at his feet, and the doll was there.
Oh my God.
So still unable to move,
Like
and helpless,
on his feet?
his leg.
And he couldn't move.
And he couldn't move, and the doll started to climb up his body until it wrapped both hands around his neck, and started to strangle him, to the point where he passed out and woke up the next morning, and the doll was gone.
Jesus.
That creepy little bastard.
It gets worse.
Worse than that.
So the next day, Lou's over at the apartment with Angie, and they're looking at maps, and they hear something coming out of Donna's room, a scuttling sound. So working up the courage, Lou enters the room and sees the doll tossed into a corner. And he bends over to examine the doll. He felt like the hairs on the back of his neck start to stand up, like someone was behind him. And so he turned around, and when he turned around, he felt this sharp pain on his chest. It appeared that there were claw marks, 2 sets, one of 3 vertically down his chest and 4 horizontally across. He was bleeding badly, and the strange thing was that the wound healed in not only 2 days. It was half gone the next day, and then completely gone by day 2. So obviously, they felt that they were out of their realm of experience here.
You think?
So they consulted a priest in the Episcopal Church who, not knowing what to do, asked his boss, a Father Hegan, who contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, known demonologists for the New England Society of Psychic.
Amityville was
Yes.
where they got their start.
A lot
actually,
of
that-
movies based
they're
on their
national.
cases.
Yes, they got their national fame from the Amityville horror.
They're like the Subway of paranormal investigators. They're just everywhere.
They really are. They are.
So the Warrens came over to the apartment, and they told the girls that they needed to take the doll to exorcise the demon, or to at least the doll itself could not be possessed, that it haunts people and not objects or things.
So they immediately, because of, I guess, past case studies, they were like, we need to treat this one a little differently.
Right. They said that they needed to remove it from the apartment. And so they, of course, agreed to it. And on the drive home, on the way back to their house in Monroe, Connecticut, where they had their museum, the car started to swerve, the brakes started to fail, the bag that they had placed the doll in was jostling in the back seat, until the point where Ed had to take out a vial of holy water and douse the doll in it and perform the sign of the cross on it, and everything stopped, and they were able to get back to their destination safely.
I need to get some of that stuff. I need to just have that on me at all times.
You mean
Just have some of that in
religion?
here.
No, just no holy water. But wait a minute, I am actually an ordained minister, so can I bless holy water?
Yeah.
I mean,
of
I'm
course.
an ordained minister in Universal Life Church.
Bless this gravy over here I got cooking. Wow.
Well, once they got it back to their house, they placed it in a sealed box that had been blessed, so that no one could interfere with it. But it's still their house. It's still in their house and their museum to this day. But there's been 2 other instances with the doll. There was another clergyman over at the house who referred disparagingly to the doll and said that, Annabelle, you're just a doll. You can't hurt anyone. And Lorraine, a known psychic, told him that he shouldn't have done that.
Robbie just told me that's the last thing you say to a doll.
Yeah. Oof.
Man, Daddy.
That doll really just does not like me, and I don't like it. So we're going to deal with this later. But please continue.
So Lorraine warned the priest that he needs to watch himself, and she had a really bad feeling about him leaving and told him that he could stay if he wanted to, but he chose to leave. And
Good idea.
on his way home, his brakes failed, and his car went diving into traffic, and he was killed instantly.
Whoa!
So this
really?
evil doll knows a lot about automobile engineering, evidently, because it's really going to go for the car thing.
It doesn't end there. I mean, years later, there was another guy in the museum with his girlfriend and started to taunt the doll. And
Why do people do these things?
well, he said that if someone had been cut by this doll, if it had attacked someone, he wanted to see it, and that it should do it to him, otherwise it wasn't real. And they told him that he needed to leave, and on his way home with his girlfriend, they had a motorcycle crash because the brakes failed. And they
it's
both
like
died.
a gremlin. It's like a gremlin. It knows how to wreck mechanical stuff, evidently.
So that's the story of Annabelle.
That's a horrible
Yeah,
story.
that's the story of Annabelle Higgins.
That's awful.
And it's still sitting right now in a house somewhere.
It was
And every
actually-
so often someone says, hey, here's a good idea. Let's go to this doll. And it always goes well.
There was actually
breaks
a video footage of them transferring cases from its old case to a new case recently that was streamed on the web.
So that was on Lorraine and Ed Warren's official website?
Yes, Warrens.net.
Warrens.net.
Well, unfortunately, Ed passed away in 2006, but Lorraine she's still alive and kicking at the age of 90.
She's a little firecracker.
Pistol.